What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Committing to Growth. This week, we are finishing off Breaking the Cycle of Silence, Part 2. So if you haven't already watched Part 1, please go back and watch that one first. In that video, I broke down some of the reasons why we struggle with talking about some of our painful experiences. And in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the tools that you can use to help you overcome that. It's very important that you watch Part 1 because Part 1 is going to make sense and roll right easily into Part 2. So let's jump right into it. The tools that I'm going to share with you is what I actually used to help me to overcome my fear of opening up about some of my painful experiences. And it is proven to work and to help me. And it's been very life-changing when it comes to me healing and understanding myself and just recovering. So if you watched the last video, one of the first reasons I shared was that we fear making our family members look bad or ruining relationships with our loved ones. And so for me, when I got to the point to where I found myself making excuses for my family because I didn't want the people that I was talking to view them in a negative light, here's what I had to tell myself. And a lot of this is just retraining your mind and the way that you view it and getting clarity on what's real and what's not real. And so the reality of it is this, is that the pain that I feel and the damage that was done to me emotionally and mentally as it pertains to my specific trauma is very real. And so what it's going to take to be real is it's just going to come down to what's more important to you. Is it more important for you to have peace, or is it more important for you to hide all the secrets in your family? That's number one. Number two, what you have to look at is that it's not about you making your family look bad. Because if you're talking to the right person, which is very important, if you're talking to the right person, they're not looking at the things that you're talking about as, oh, your mom is terrible, or oh, your dad is the worst. They're not looking at it like that. They're looking at it like, for the most of the time when I'm in a class setting and I'm talking to somebody, I am thinking about, one, what they're saying. And when you're explaining to me something that one of your parents or grandparents or whoever did to you, my mind automatically goes to what could have happened to them to make them think that that was okay. You know what I'm saying? Because some of this stuff is just not natural. If you really think about it, like, it's not natural for a parent to not be loving and affectionate with their child. And so if one of your parents were like that, you have to think about what could have happened to them in their childhood that would make them feel like this is acceptable for me not to give my child this love and affection. You know what I mean? So if you're talking to the right person, their thought process is not even to judge who you're talking about, more so than to respond with a level of compassion towards them because for whatever reason, they felt like that was okay to treat you like that. And so don't tell yourself that you're making them look bad. It's not even about them. Like, if you don't hear anything else that I say, hear this. You talking about your trauma is not about the person that you are talking about. It is about you finding your voice and getting that freedom to be able to speak about how you feel. Period. That's all it's about. It's about you finding your voice and speaking your truth. Finding your voice and speaking your truth. That's all it's about. And so if you keep telling yourself that, then your mind is going to shift from, I'm not making my mom look bad. I'm just finding my voice and I'm speaking my truth. And that's it. And then where you can give context, you give context. Like I did in one of my previous videos when I talked about my childhood and my mom struggling with drugs. I pointed out the fact that she was a single mom trying to raise 3 kids and she had 2 jobs to support her habit and to take care of the household, but sometimes the household fell short. And so I don't have to drag her through the mud with all her mistakes, but you can give context where these were the things that was going on in my house. These were the things that I recognized in my grandparents. So this is probably what contributed to why my parents responded the way they did, but still, the way they responded to me affected me in ABC. You know what I'm saying? And so it's going to be really crucial for you to change the way you view talking about them, so that way the guilt doesn't sit in your mind while you're trying to express yourself. And when it comes down to ruining, your relationships with your family members, if you think about it in a very practical way, and this is what I had to tell myself, if me telling my family that I was raped by my cousin causes them to stop talking to me, they have the problem. Not me, okay? That's their problem. If you want to stop talking to me because I was sexually assaulted by a person that you just so happen to like. Like, if you think about it, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that you would be mad at me because I was violated and I'm choosing to say something. Because technically, that should be the right response. You know what I'm saying? Technically, in a perfect world, I would be in an environment where I feel comfortable enough to say something right then and there when it happened. But if I'm not in that environment and I do decide to say something, your response should be thinking about the fact that, dang, how long does she have to hold on to this? Or what does that look like for her to have to hold on to this for so long? You know what I'm saying? And so if their response is to be mad at you or to distance themselves from you, that's their problem. And that's not somebody that you want to be attached to you during your healing process either, because they're probably emotionally unhealthy as well, which is not going to be any benefit to you. So you definitely want to be mindful of who you're dealing with, because you can't expect an emotionally unhealthy person to respond to you in a healthy way. And one thing one of my mentors told me when I started my healing journey was to not bleed around sharks. And when I tell you, that spoke to me like crazy, because I was like, that makes so much sense. So you have to be mindful of who you're bringing into your world when you start your healing process. And so if it is somebody that you can talk to and let them know, like, hey, I'm starting counseling, or I'm taking this class, so I'm going to talk about a few things. Few things are probably going to come up. We're probably going to have a few conversations, great. But if that's not a person that you can talk to, then don't force them to be what you want them to be in this season. Just accept the fact that you may have to take this journey by yourself, or hit me up if you need to, whatever. But don't bleed around sharks, and be mindful of who you're talking to. If you can forewarn them, great. If not, then you take this journey by yourself, or you hope and pray that God sends some people to you, or, around you that can pour into you in this season while you're navigating this healing journey. Okay. Now, the second one that I talked about was the anxiety that we feel when we have to be vulnerable about opening up to anybody about our painful experiences. So there is no trick when it comes to the vulnerability. Here's what I had to tell myself. Number one, I had to figure out what was my why. You know what I'm saying? Why am I choosing to start the process to heal? Because if you can figure out what your why is, that's going to be the thing that's going to drive you on those days when you like, I'm over it. I'm not thinking about another thing. I'm not talking about nothing else. I'm over this. I don't want to be in my feelings no more. Okay, that's going to be the thing that's going to drive you. For me, my thing was when I became a mom, like the level of love that I felt for my daughter was like indescribable. Like, it's like I literally cannot describe the love that I felt for my daughter, and her love towards me, that unconditional, that no matter what, you're the best thing since sliced bread type of love that she gave me. I was like, I want to give her the best parts of me 24/7. And so that pushed me to want to figure out what's going on up here and in here that's causing me to respond the way that I'm responding. And so on those hard days when I was over it, when I got those hard questions and I didn't want to answer them, when I sat and I cried all day because I was emotionally overwhelmed, that was the thing that pushed me and kept me going, because I had to keep reminding myself that you're doing this for Janiyah. You're doing this for Janiyah. You want her to be raised with the whole version of you. And the only way she's going to be raised with the whole version of you is if you don't give up. And so that was what pushed me. So first and foremost, you have to figure out what your why is. Okay. And then once you figure out what your why is, you have to tell yourself that you owe it to yourself to heal. I owe it to myself to get this out of my head. You know what I'm saying? I owe it to myself. You think about how much energy we pour into our families, our friends, work, church, any activities that you're a part of, you know, how much we love on everybody, how much we cheer them on. Although all that energy and that love that we pour into everybody else, and we don't give ourselves that same measure of love and energy. And so for me, I had to take this selfish approach, if you want to say it like that. I had to take this selfish approach that I owe it to myself to heal. I owe it to myself to get this stuff out of my head. I owe it to myself to walk a little lighter than what I've been walking for the last couple of years. And so that's what helped me to be comfortable enough to say, yeah, like literally, it took me 15 years to be able to say I was raped. 15 years to be able to say it out of my mouth that this is what happened to me. Because like, I wouldn't even say it out loud. I would think it, you know what I'm saying? But for me to like sit here and say it out loud, like I couldn't even do it. And so, you know, it's still going to be uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? These tools are not magic, but it's definitely going to push you, you know, in those moments where you want to give up. And so I had to get to the point to where I would take a deep breath and I would just allow myself to just sit in the moment. And let me tell you something, that is the hardest thing in the world, is to sit in your emotions. When I do my classes, and we get to this point, like we don't, in class, we don't, when you start crying, we're not gonna pat your back and, oh, it's okay, and it's gonna be all right. No, we give you a minute. We give you some tissue, but we're gonna give you a minute to sit in that sadness. And here's the thing, it might sound harsh a little bit, because usually in the beginning of the class when I explain it, you know, I can see people's face expressions change when I say like, I'm going to allow you to sit there for a minute. But here's why. Because typically for people who are not used to expressing themselves, when you get to that moment where you get emotionally overwhelmed and the tears get right to the tip of your eyelid, we know how to stuff that stuff down. We know how to distract ourselves. We know what to do to cut that emotion off so that we don't fully fall all the way into it. And so what the class is designed to do is to teach you how to feel. And so what I say is face it, feel it, and talk about it. And so we face it, we identify that I am sad. And now I'm gonna allow myself to feel it, okay? And so I'm gonna feel it and I'm gonna sit in that sadness and I'm gonna process how that sadness makes me feel. I'm gonna process where that sadness come from. I'm gonna process all the thoughts that comes with that sadness. And if I feel like I wanna cry, I'm gonna let myself cry. If I feel like I wanna fuss and scream, I'm gonna allow myself to scream. If I just wanna sit here and not say nothing, if I wanna do the ugly cry, whatever it is that I wanna do in this moment, I'm gonna do it. And then I'm gonna talk about, this is why I feel like this right now. This is where I'm at. And so sometimes, you know, the easiest way to get over something is to just go straight on through it. And so it's gonna require in the beginning some hard moments for you to just sit in that thing. Sit in that discomfort of, I need to just go ahead and say it. And so whether you practice saying it in the mirror or you record yourself on a voice memo so that way you can play it back and get used to hearing yourself say it, or you write it a couple of times to where you can get comfortable with saying it, you know, you're really gonna have to just sit in it until you get to the point to where it gets easier. And it gets easier for you to say it and easier for you to say it. And so at one time, I wouldn't say it at all. And then I started saying it and then I would cringe. And then, you know, after a while, the cringing kind of minimized a little bit. And then I wouldn't cringe as much, but I would look around the room to see if people's face expressions change. And I was to the point to where, you know, I can say it. I can say it without cringing. I can say it without crying. I can say it without looking around the room trying to see what people's face expressions. I just say it because I found my voice and I'm owning my truth. And this is what it is. It happened to me and it sucks, but it happened to me. Okay. And the last one is, after you've convinced yourself for so many years that it's easier for you to not talk about it, now you have to retrain yourself in the way that you think about this situation. This one is going to take a lot of work as well, because what it's going to require is you to do some inventory on what this looks like for you to not talk about it. And think about it. Think about, if you're in a relationship and your spouse does something to you and you don't say anything about it for whatever reason, whether it's because you feel like it's going to blow up into a big old argument that you don't have time for, or you got a busy week, or y'all have something exciting coming up and you don't really want to ruin the week by bringing it up, so you choose not to say nothing about it. And so you may choose not to say anything about it for the sake of keeping peace. But internally, you're still processing how you feel about that situation. So think about how much that bothers you when you don't talk about it, how it affects the little sharp responses you give them, the attitude that you give them, and you don't even realize that you're giving that attitude, but it just naturally comes out of you because you're holding on to something, how much it eats away at you on the inside, and it makes you frustrated every time you see them or think about something that pertains to them or has to do with this situation. Every time you talk to them, you got to swallow real hard to keep from bringing this up, because you done already told yourself that you're not going to say nothing right now. And so the same way that those little moments affect you is the same way not talking about a traumatic experience that you've been through will affect you, because it will cause you to respond in a very negative way to everything else around you, because you're stuffing this down. And so because I can't respond to this, I'm going to over respond to everything else. And so I'm going to overcompensate in other areas. You're going to overreact in other areas because you're not able to respond to this, and you're suppressing your feelings in this area. You're going to go above and beyond in the next. And so when you do some inventory, whether it's you look at the last relationship that you ended, or if you cut somebody off, whatever you want to call it, you want to look at why y'all fell out. If it was because of a lack of betrayal or something like that, you want to look at what actually happened. Talk to some people to get their perspective on it, to see if you overreacted, to see if you viewed the situation, to see if you even took the steps to understand what happened. Because sometimes we won't even be talking to folks about what happened. You do something I don't like, I'm done with you. You know what I'm saying? That's a trigger. And that's something that you want to pay attention to, because if trust is a big issue for you, any inclination of disloyalty, you're going to run for the hills. Okay. And so those are the things where you want to look at, like how you respond to conflict. Do you overreact, or do you not respond at all? And so when you do some inventory about how you deal with the people in your life, whether it's at work or at home, then you'll see where not talking about it is affecting you way worse. And so I would much rather open up and talk about it and deal with the discomfort of having to expose those ugly parts of me, rather than to suppress it and keep it to myself and have it eat away at me and ruin my life. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not hurting anybody by talking about it, but not by when you do talk about it. But when you don't talk about it, you're only hurting yourself. So there is no amount of words that I can come up with to express to you the importance of figuring out if the reasons that I named don't relate to you, and you have another reason why you don't want to say anything. I need you to write that thing out. I need you to count up the costs. You know what I'm saying? Count up the cost of what your life looks like keeping it to yourself, and count up the cost of what it looks like if you were to come out and say something about it. And I can guarantee you that it's going to cost you a whole lot more to keep it to yourself. And I'm not talking about the outside stuff, the tangible stuff. I'm talking about your peace. I'm talking about your joy, the freedom to be able to trust the right people, the freedom to be able to love the right people, to give and receive love. I'm talking about that. I'm talking about a positive, image and view of yourself, and a high level of self-worth. That's what I'm talking about. It's going to cost you. And those things are way more precious than, just being liked by somebody. You know what I mean? And so I want you to count up the cost of what it's going to take for you to keep it to yourself or come on out about it. And of course, we know that when we're talking about stuff that's happened in our childhood or, speaking up about being sexually or physically abused, we know what society says about this stuff when we take forever to say it. And nobody knows what it takes for you to hold on to that stuff and to finally decide to come out about it. And so I do plan to do a few videos to share my experience with that specifically, but I'm still in the process of it. So I'm going to give it some time to kind of play out, and then I'll share it once it's at the end of it. So that way I feel like I've gotten everything I need to get from it before I share it with y'all. But I want to encourage you that wherever you are and whatever you've experienced, if you started your healing journey, you're thinking about it, you're scared to start it, never thought about it until you watched this video, or you've already started and you just hit a roadblock, I want to encourage you to please get started and keep going. You owe it to yourself to heal. If you don't remember nothing else that I said in this video, please remember you owe it to yourself to heal. And so I want you to get everything that you deserve. I want you to be the best version of yourself. And the only way that you're going to do that is if you find your voice and speak your truth. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all for watching. As always, please make sure to share this, because you never know who's going to stumble upon this video and need it. And this could be life-changing for somebody. So please make sure to share. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, because I'm going to continue to post weekly videos about my healing journey in the hopes that it will help you to continue to progress in yours. I love y'all, like for real. I love y'all, and I'm praying for you. And I just want you to get everything that God has for you.